The Democratic Party in Virginia is a goddamn mess. So y'all know what happened with Ralph Northam. This guy appears apparently in an image with a KKK guy, someone dressed as like a KKK member or blackface. He then says, I'm sorry for the image, but then later comes out and says it wasn't him. But then he admits to actually donning blackface in the past. Okay. So everyone then thinks that the lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, is going to take over. Unfortunately, we have this story. Washington Post refused to run sketchy sex assault allegation against a Democrat. They ran several against Brett Kavanaugh. Basically, you've got this story. So let me pull up the New York Times first, just to give you the context. Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of Virginia denounces sexual assault allegation as a smear on the 4th. My God, somebody is really, really just destroying the Democratic Party governorship in Virginia. Wow. So here's what we have. Justin Fairfax of Virginia emphatically denied on Monday a woman's claim that he sexually assaulted her in 2004, suggesting that Governor Ralph Northam's supporters were trying to block his ascent to the governorship at a moment when Mr. Northam is besieged by demands that he resign over charges. I'm holding back laughing. What is going on? The Democrats are accusing each other of smearing each other. This dude, Northam, at a press conference where he was denying appearing in a photo with blackface, then admitted to doing it, and then someone in the crowd asked him if he could still moonwalk, and he looks to the ground like he's going to do it, and his wife has to tell him to stop. What's going on? We are in the craziest timeline. Our president is a reality TV real estate mogul. The governor of Virginia almost tried to moonwalk at a press conference where he admitted to wearing blackface, and now the lieutenant governor who was supposed to take over is being accused of sexual assault and blaming Northam's supporters, who is a Democrat. He's blaming Democrats for falsely smearing him with sexual assault. Brett Kavanaugh spinning around in his chair in his office laughing the whole time. When Brett Kavanaugh is running for, is going to be appointed to the Supreme Court, he gets attacked left and right. And it appears to be a partisan attack from Democrats. But what do you say? What do you say to Fairfax when he claims it's the Democrats doing it? Welcome to 2019. This has been a hoot and a holler. Let's read the story. Vanessa Tyson claims Fairfax sexually assaulted her at the 2004 Democratic National Convention in Boston, Massachusetts, when the lieutenant governor was a campaign staffer. Fairfax denied the accusation, pointing out that the Washington Post was made aware of the accusation around the time Fairfax was inaugurated a year ago, but the outlet investigated the claim and declined to run it. The Post carefully investigated the claim for several months. After being presented with facts consistent with Lieutenant Governor's denial of the allegation, the absence of evidence corroborating the allegation, and significant red flags and inconsistencies within the allegation, the Post made the considered decision not to publish the story, Fairfax said. Really? There's this thing that it reminds me of this thing. What was it? A few months ago? I can't remember all the details, but someone being appointed to the Supreme Court was accused by a woman that 30 years ago he groped her on a bed, giggled, and ran off. And she didn't know where it happened. She didn't know when it happened. She didn't know how she got there. She couldn't prove any of it. There was no corroborating evidence. Yet somehow, believe all women was paramount. I'm sorry. A year ago, when Lieutenant Governor was accused of assault, Washington Post says, for basically the same reasons, we're not going to run the story. Welcome to America. Welcome to the press. Welcome to journalism. Yeah. That's what, when people say fake news, you have to wonder why. Notice what Fairfax says led to the Post to refuse to run the story. Let's go point by point and see how the Washington Post and other outlets failed to live up to such standards when the shaky accusations were against a Republican, now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And let me just say, I am no fan of Brett Kavanaugh. By no means. I think his views on national security as it pertains to digital technology and information security are archaic and lacking the understanding how he should rule on the Fourth Amendment as it pertains to technology. That's fine, though. I can understand that, and I can have criticisms of the man and still denounce the insane allegations that were put forth that were proven to be almost entirely false. This is the problem with politics today. People just want to win. They don't care. By any means necessary. So you will see people, you know what really pisses me off? This one phrase, credibly accused. What is that? What does credibly accused mean? And all the Democrats were saying Brett Kavanaugh was credibly accused. No, he wasn't. There was no credible allegation. And why are you adding that qualifier to the word accused? He was accused, period. There's no such thing as calling an accusation credible or incredible. It's just ridiculous. Let's read on. I'm getting angry. Facts consistent with the accused denial. Kavanaugh consistently denied each new progressively more ludicrous accusation against him. He said he studied hard in school, was part of a church committee, but also drank. Some classmates claimed that he was a belligerent drunk. Others said he was a stand-up guy. None of that corroborates any of the woman's claims, nor does disprove his denial. The Post found multiple people to claim Kavanaugh must have forgotten what he did at least sometimes when drinking, even though there was no human ability to detect whether another person's brain is creating short-term memories or not. Also, Kavanaugh was attacked over his high school yearbook quotes, and every time he explained one of them, it turned out to be the correct explanation. Multiple classmates who knew Kavanaugh, his friends, and the origin of the quotes backed up the judge's explanations. Absence of evidence corroborating the allegation. With nothing more than a written accusation, the Post reported the accusations against Kavanaugh. Without any investigation, the allegations were published credulously. There was no corroborating evidence for any of the accusations, and yes, I believe like 4 out of 5 are proven to be false. One of them was proven to be an outright lie. The dude apparently apologized and said he made it all up. I'm not going to get into all the old Kavanaugh stuff in that sense. I mean, we're talking about it, but it's just how many times you have these ridiculous stories about Kavanaugh where they claimed he was like part of a group that was gang raping women and mass drugging them, and no one knew about it. It was just insane. There was no corroboration, and apparently in an NBC interview, the woman who made the claims recanted most of what she was saying. Christine Blasey Ford gave the names of several people who should have remembered the party or the assault. Not one could corroborate her claims. Deborah Ramirez also gave names, and again, no one could corroborate her claims. The New York Times initially declined to run Ramirez's allegation because it couldn't be corroborated, but did so once the New Yorker published the accusation without corroboration. Welcome to journalism. Bravo, journalists. These people are not journalists, they're activists, and they disgust me. They do this because they want attention. They do this because they want traffic, and that's why, look, I'll say it was a contentious debate between whether or not BuzzFeed should have published the dossier, the Trump dossier. It's tough. You've got a bunch of politicians talking about it. You've got a bunch of journalists knowing what's in it. And why should that be kept from the public? But there is a good argument. It's uncorroborated nonsense, and nobody wanted to publish it until BuzzFeed decided to leak it. And then it became a huge issue, and it's probably fake news. Then they have the Julie Swetnick who came forward. We get it. Significant red flags. Each Kavanaugh accuser's story had significant red flags. That should have merited further investigation or at least a modicum of skepticism. Ford couldn't remember how she got home after the party, and no one came forward to say where they were, to say they were the one who drove her home. And her claims of being traumatized today all fell apart. She didn't have a fear of flying. She didn't have a fear of confined spaces. And the second door in her house was part of renovations, not some need to escape. Ramirez didn't even know if Kavanaugh was the man who exposed himself to her and had to talk to old Yale classmates. And it was like 3 days later she decided, you know what, I think it's actually true that it was Kavanaugh. Yet, the Washington Post didn't want to run a story against a Democrat. You know what really, really bothers me more than anything is hypocrisy. Double standards. Okay? My politics fall squarely social liberal. And I say it a million times. Because in this world, people can't seem to understand the fact that some people have integrity, believe it or not. Why does this piss me off? Journalists claim to be, they do things based on facts. Bullshit. They do things based on their speculation. They do things based on their mission to, I'll give you an example. Facebook hired a team to curate trending stories. They deleted conservative stories because they said it's fake news, just because it came from conservative outlets. Admittedly, when they stopped, and let bots take over, fake news did start to rise to the top. So that's unfortunate too. But I believe that, no. There's actually data from Pew that shows journalists tend to be overwhelmingly liberal. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with a journalist being conservative or being liberal. I have a problem with liars. You may have noticed I tweeted quite a bit about how so many conservatives were misrepresenting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's claims about a progressive tax rate. It bothered me too. But I gotta say it. When I tweet about that, like, hey, you're wrong. The 70% tax rate only affects people who make an income, literal income, more than $10 million. Not putting away investments, not writing things off, not assets, they're literal income. Okay, that's a big difference between claiming a guy who's a plumber is going to pay 70%. I can call that out just fine. But there's something that has to be said. It's rare that I see a conservative do something that deliberately misrepresents. Another thing that's happening that I've called out is Turning Point USA saying that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez claimed there shouldn't be billionaires in this country. She didn't. She said we shouldn't have billionaires at the same time as we have sick people who can't afford health care. That's different. Criticize the core concept. Criticize what she actually said, because I still disagree with her. You can't stop having billionaires simply because people can't afford healthcare. That's just, it's hard to solve that problem. It's not immoral, it's a problem. We can try to solve it. But it's not like we shouldn't have billionaires because of it. No, we should have billionaires. We just need to figure out how to help people get healthcare. It's like a non sequitur, okay? But it is rare, in my opinion, because I balance out who I follow and the sources I read between mainstream media, left-wing and right-wing media, and it's typically the left that's lying. That, you know, someone told me that the parties have switched because it was like 10, 15, 20 years ago that ideologically driven, disingenuous characters were very Republican. And now it seems to be less so. For the most part, I'm not a fan of Republican politicians. Those no, none of those people. And I gotta say, a lot of the Republican politicians I hate, I dislike. I don't want to say hate. I dislike more than Democrats, but boy, do Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi give most Republicans a run for their money. I really, really despise those people. I dislike Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi way more than I dislike Trump, okay? But anyway, back to the main point. I look at these stories. You hear about how Washington Post wouldn't run the story against Justin Fairfax. Had no problem running a story against Brett Kavanaugh. Why? Because they're all liberals. They think they're right, and they think they're justified in misrepresenting, or you know what, it's possible they're just completely incompetent. They can't understand, they're in a bubble, they're all following their friends on Twitter, and they think they live in the real world, when they don't. Anyway, I'm over it. I got one more video coming up, stick around, I'll see you in a minute.